And we have returned. Welcome back to the stream, everybody. That right there was Sigma Stage 1 from Mega Man X, the first game, and that was, of course, by Lame Genie. It's the first thing they've released in a while, at least on YouTube, so, you know, figured I'd play it. I do love me some Mega Man music, even though I'm not terribly good at the games. I do own Mega Man X in a couple of places. I should probably stream that one day, and then you can see how miserable I am at Mega Man games. Hello, Twin. Welcome back to the stream. Hopefully you're having a lovely day. I know I'm having an okay day. It's not too bad out there. It's just very, 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 very muggy. Very muggy. Although we're going to be getting the tail end of a hurricane sometime within the next few days, so hey, maybe I'm not too surprised about that. Anyway, I got a couple of things in mind I'd like to do today, one of the big ones, of course, being finally getting back to Fallout, because I haven't done a Retro Sunday, a proper one, in I think a month? And I think I'm getting close-ish to the end of Fallout. Like, I know there's a bunch of side quests I can do, there's an entire city I haven't gone to yet, but there are two major things I need to do to finish the game, and I don't really think I'm too far off from that. Yeah. So we'll be getting to that, but before we do, something I promised last time I streamed is that last week, as a matter of fact, it was nearly exactly a week ago, because it was very early on a Sunday morning. I think it was like 1 o'clock Sunday morning, because I stayed up pretty late. I finally finished Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So as is in the title of the stream currently, there is indeed a spoiler warning, and I'm going to warn you right now, so I'm just going to give you the time to leave the stream if you don't want any of the game spoiled for you, because I'm not going to go into like a lot of in-depth detail here, but I am going to basically explain a lot of the stuff that happened in the game. And of course I will be posting this to YouTube later, so this is another moment where if you for whatever reason happen to be watching this video like in the month or so time when I finally actually post this to YouTube, now is your time to vacate the premises if you don't want to actually hear about the game, if you plan on going into it fresh, if you haven't played it yet. Okay? Okay? Good? 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 Alright. So Tears of the Kingdom, I finally finished it. And I did stream all of Breath of the Wild, I know this, but like the minute I got Tears of the Kingdom, I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to stream this. Because I do have a couple of large games that I have started streaming, but I know it took me nearly 2 years to finish Breath of the Wild stream. And it took me about a year and a half to finish Tears of the Kingdom without streaming it. So because it takes me longer to get through a game while I'm streaming it, I imagine it would have easily been 2 years for me to finish that, if not longer. And I got Tears of the Kingdom at a fairly rough time, because there was a lot going on in my life at the time. I was still streaming at the time, but I couldn't really commit to something that big. So this stuff was just happening. So, if you want my overall bare-bones assessment, it was good. It was really fun. It actually changed up the formula that was already established in Breath of the Wild in a much more user-friendly light. I know one of the big things that people, well, I say people, that there's... I mean, they're people, yes, but there are certain groups of people who will complain about certain things in really stupid ways, I guess is the best way to explain it. That's a very roundabout way to explain it, but here we are. And it's an argument that's been going on for quite some time. There are people who don't very much like Nintendo games in general, and Nintendo as a company. There's legitimate grievances against Nintendo as a company, don't get me wrong, but a lot of these usually aren't legitimate grievances. Like, one of the refrains I heard back maybe 10 years ago was, like, Nintendo doesn't make any new games, basically. They're like, oh, they just keep making the same game over and over again. And while they use the same characters over and over again, they do kind of, like, try to shake things up a bit. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom being two very prime examples of that. Anyway, one of the complaints was just like, oh, they're just, you know, it's the same game. Why are they charging a new game price for the same game, because just the same quote-unquote overworld. Except, you know, it's not really. It's the same geographical location, but all the characters have been swapped around. Like, most of the characters show up again in Tears of the Kingdom from Breath of the Wild. But they're at different points in the game map. They're doing different things. There's large chunks of the world that have been changed. I think there were like a handful of caves in Breath of the Wild. There's, I think, over 100 of them in Tears of the Kingdom with various things you can explore. That's not even getting into the stuff that's in the depths or like all the sky islands. Though I will say I found exploring the depths to be very, very annoying. Very annoying. I did not spend a lot of time down there until the end when I was trying to gather up all the stuff I needed. It was also very difficult to keep track of things. Case in point, I was in no way finishing every single thing in the game before I finished it. I already established I wasn't going to do that. The big one, of course, being the Korok seeds, because much like in Breath of the Wild, you can collect Korok seeds, and they do have a practical purpose. You bring them to this lovely character named Hestu. The Hestu dance is great. I never skipped over that cutscene. But you bring your Korok seeds to Hestu, and he increases the amount of weapons or bows or shields you can carry. You know, perfect. You know, it's a great thing, especially with all the stuff you can collect. However, much like in Breath of the Wild, same thing in Tears of the Kingdom, you don't actually need to collect all the Korok seeds to increase your inventory limit. You don't even need half of them. Because in Breath of the Wild, there were 900 of them. Tears of the Kingdom, there's 1,000. And the one thing I do know is that in Breath of the Wild, if you do collect every single one of them, you do get a reward, and all that reward is you get like an item that's essentially golden Korok poop. And that's it. The implication being that that's what the Korok seeds are. Tears of the Kingdom, same thing. The only extra bonus you get on top of that is that Hestu will dance whenever you ask him to. Which, I mean, I feel like that's a pretty decent reward, but I wasn't about to kill myself to do it. I do love solving the Korok puzzles, so I would still hit them up whenever I found them, like, organically as I came across them. Wasn't going to kill myself finding them all. But anyway, one specific thing that I did indeed want to do was find all the shrines so I can get as many hearts and stamina wheels as I could. So, the thing that was mostly holding me up when I tried to finish it last Saturday is that I didn't have all the shrines. I was missing one. There's 152 shrines total. I had 151. It got to the point where I had to look at an interactive map online, and I was like, no, I have all of them in the overworld. I have all of them up in the sky. What the frig is going on? Why do I not? And then I discovered that it is possible, and I'd done it a couple of times without realizing it. And Nintendo basically told players work hard to find all Korok seeds. Then it all goes to shit. Quite literal shit. Yes, exactly. But yeah, anyway, something I didn't fully comprehend is the fact that you can activate a shrine and use it as a fast travel point, but not actually complete it. Like, you can, you know, for whatever reason in the back of my head, because I always finish the shrines as I activated them, I was like, oh, you can only fast travel to it once you've solved the puzzle inside. Not true. And it very, very slightly shows you that it's not finished, because what it is the shrines will have a blue outline on their map symbol. There's a little orange glow in the middle of it if you haven't completed the shrine yet. Problem is, certain areas of the map, that orange glow is very hard. What happened is that I think about halfway through my playtime, there's a bunch of labyrinths up in the sky that you can go through, the mazes that give you items and shit when you finish them. Right up in the top north, I want to say eastern, northeast, yeah, east is this way. Although, from the way you're looking, it's not, I don't think. Yeah, anyway, whatever. In the top northeastern section of the map, there is a labyrinth, and what happened was I went up there, I activated the shrine so I could fast travel to it, but I must have been running short on time to play, so I just finished the labyrinth, didn't complete the shrine. I spent, I think, literally an hour trying to figure out which shrine I hadn't completed, and then I got it. So there we go, I got all the shrines, got all my health and stamina wheels, and your reward for finishing that is a bit better than a pile of golden poop, but it's also just horribly confusing. You end up getting an article of clothing that grants you the aspect of an ancient hero. Specifically, I don't know if you remember from Breath of the Wild, and you can find it in Tears of the Kingdom as well. There is a big mural that shows the calamity from 10,000 years ago. We're not talking like the founding of Hyrule, which are the events you see in the flashbacks in Tears of the Kingdom. We're talking about the first time Calamity Ganon showed up and tried to kill everybody, which is when the Sheikah used the Guardians. Very specifically, you can see what's implied to be Zelda and what's implied to be Link of that time period, fighting the Calamity, surrounded by Guardians and Champions. The Link figure, though, has long, flowing red hair, and this set off a wildstorm of, Wildstorm? I don't think that... Firestorm. There we go. That's the terminology. This set off a firestorm of speculation where people like, but wait, maybe it was the original Ganon was actually the hero, or, you know, some sort of other Gyarados male. Because of the long red hair. Because the Gyarados are very frequently the only people who have that particular style of red hair, and Ganondorf quite famously has red hair. No, that's not who it was. So something that just adds further questions. When you, I do not have a picture of it. I was going to have a picture of it, but I forgot to get it. But the aspect that you take on is this weird... I don't even know how to describe it. It looks a little bit like the Zonai, like the ancient precursor race that created a lot of the stuff you see in Tears of the Kingdom. One of them, Rauru, you have his arm grafted onto your body throughout the entire game. It looks a little bit like a Zonai, but not really, because Zonais have third eyes, and you have a jewel, or almost like a tiara thing on your head to represent a third eye, but it's not an actual third eye. If anything, it looks a lot like Gyarados jewelry, and the hair that this figure has does look like Gyarados hair. And also it has bright blue eyes like most incarnations of Link do. The legs and feet aren't the same as a regular Zonai. It has a tail. None of the Zonai have a tail. So it's like, what the hell is this thing? Because then you think, well, maybe it's like a cross between a Hylian and a Zonai, but that doesn't really explain the tail. And it also doesn't really explain how it existed, because Rauru and his sister Minoru were implicitly the last Zonai, and they existed thousands of years before this dude existed. And, anyway, what I'm saying is this is basically a rabbit hole that makes no sense. We're probably not even supposed to think about it too much. That's like trying to figure out where in the timeline, quote-unquote official timeline, that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom exist in. The answer, to my opinion, is it doesn't. This is a new thing. Because they explicitly tell you how Ganondorf became the Demon King in this game, and it does not match anything else in any of the other games. What I'm saying is probably thinking about it too hard is a bad idea. Just sit back and enjoy the ride. I love that I went off on a massive tangent about that when that doesn't have anything to do with the rest of it. Anyway. So I did that, and I went in, I finished the game. Getting down to Ganondorf is a hell of a slog, as one would expect, because it was a hell of a slog getting to Calamity Ganon in the first game. So you basically have to go underneath the castle and into this massive area of the depths. And of course, much like when I played Breath of the Wild, which, if you go to my YouTube channel, you can see me attempting to do this. When I got off the plateau in Breath of the Wild, I made a beeline straight for the castle and got as far into it as I possibly could before I got killed. I think I managed to sneak in as far as the library before I got shot in the head with a bomb arrow by a Lizalfos, and then after that I decided to give up. Almost the same thing. I finished the first temple, which was like the Sky Temple area in Rito Village in Tears of the Kingdom, then went to see if I could figure out where Ganon was. Did, managed to get down to where he was. Got into the fight with his forces, because you have to fight a few waves of enemies before he even shows up, but, much like in Breath of the Wild, if you haven't defeated the main bosses, whatever boss you haven't killed, you have to fight in a boss rush before Ganon even shows up. So I managed to take out the waves of enemies somehow, and fought the boss of Death Mountain, this thing called the Marbled Goma. I managed to whittle it down to half health, and then it killed me in a single hit, because I had like 7 or 8 hearts, I think, at the time. Anyway. So anyway, I went down there after making sure that I had a pile of different things upgraded. I got a pile of decent weaponry, which I did not need to actually collect all the weaponry that I did, because I think the Master Sword is unbreakable when you fight Ganon, which makes sense. And I had attached a fairly powerful weapon at the end of... Well, as a matter of fact, I attached one of Ganondorf's own weapons to the Master Sword, so it was probably doing over 100 points of damage. That's one thing I will say, the fight was actually surprisingly easy. If you weren't careful, he could really beat the crap out of you. Specifically because he has an ability to permanently destroy some of your health, which I didn't realize till halfway through the fight. But as long as you've got some fairly decent defensive capabilities and a decent weapon, you're pretty good. You know some basics of the combat controls. But anyway, I had kind of a competition, well, not really a competition, but me and my friend kind of made a pact. Like, she had finished the game a few weeks before I did, and the idea was to go into the Ganon fight wearing the most ridiculous thing we could possibly think of. She already laid dibs on the CC hat, which is this very stylish hat with a pile of mushrooms on top of it. Link gets like a purpley wig and bright purple lipstick, and you can't see his eyes. It's great. So I thought to myself, what's the next ridiculous thing I can think of? I originally thought to wear Majora's Mask, which isn't ridiculous exactly, but it's an evil versus evil scenario. Alternatively, Phantom Ganon's helmet, because I thought, you know, screw it, let's fight Ganon as Ganon. But then I thought to myself, no. No, what I need to do is I need to wear the silliest, most determined-looking thing, which is... Extra outfits you can get in the game are all based off of Links from previous games. There is one that is the outfit of Link from Link's Awakening, specifically the Link's Awakening remake. And while all the other Links have just hats, like their style of hats from the previous games, the Link's Awakening remake one is just his head. this cartoon head. So here's a picture of me and the crew of sages just before we fight Ganon. I've taken some pictures of this. Yes. Yes! Look at the face. Look at the face. It's so good. The other things I wore were the Champion's Leathers, which was the upgraded version of the tunic from Breath of the Wild. You have to do a little quest to find that. And I wore the Fierce Deity's boots, because fully upgraded, I mean, they give you a fair bit of defense, and they increase your damage, which is another reason why I was able to beat the crap out of Ganon. And the Champion's Leathers give you way more defense than any other item in the game. Like, I think it maxes out at 12 defense points more than anything else you can get. And then there's the hood, which, you know, I didn't have fully upgraded, but didn't matter, it was fun. So yeah, we went down there, we fought the guy. This is Ganon taunting me, which again is hilarious because of the mask. What else? Oh, in the middle of the fight, I took this picture. So yeah, I actually had time to dick around in the middle of the fight, just taking silly pictures of me and Ganon. You can kind of see Riju running around in the background there. But I don't know, it was good. I was quite appreciative that I was able to do that, because, I don't know. Does that mean I was taking it very seriously? Probably not. But anyway, like I said, the final boss fight was not overly difficult, but it was fun, which I feel like is the best way to describe the boss fights in Tears of the Kingdom in general. Because, do you remember anything about the Blight Ganons from Breath of the Wild? Because I sure as hell don't. I remember some of them were very annoying to fight. I think the one in the giant camel was an absolute pain in the ass to try to beat, but other than that, there wasn't anything really fun about it. Aside from the nuisance of the Queen Gibdo and the Sludge Octorok, I can't even remember if that's what it's actually called. Like, overall, the boss fights in this game were actually fun, go figure. They weren't overly difficult, but holy crap, were they entertaining. So fighting Ganon here wasn't exactly, like, taxing, but it was fun. It had, like, a decent flow to it. Like, you actually had to vary up what it was you were doing. I mean, hell, he used some of my own tactics against me in this particular fight. So no, that was neat. I appreciated that. So I feel like the best way to explain it, though, is overall the action and the boss fights and the way the game controlled here were fun. It was actually a lot better than what Breath of the Wild was in that regard. One complaint I do have, though, is that while the story was good, I don't think I like the story and general progression of this game as much as I did Breath of the Wild. And the main reason why is that it seemed very disjointed. And that's partly a consequence of the open worldness of the game, but I mean, Breath of the Wild was too, but that was structured in such a way that it didn't really matter what way you tackled things, it still kind of funneled towards the same thing. In this game, on the other hand, you've got a couple of major stuff that you're trying to do at the same time. I mean, you don't even really know too much about Ganondorf at the very beginning, but you do know that he's something you need to deal with, because you see him at the beginning of the game, but you don't even really know what he is. And so your two major goals are that, and to figure out what happened to Princess Zelda. Problem is, I organically figured out what happened to Zelda before the game even told me what happened to Zelda. And I have the proof of that. Well, I mean, not really the proof, but I got about halfway through the game. I finished the Wind Temple first, and then I went to the Water Temple. And, I had gotten the initial run-up to get to the main temple proper. I was there with Sidon, everyone's favorite fish boy, and he went off to go to the main entrance so we can begin the main actual quest to figure out how to fix things up in the temple. And at this point, I was piecing together from, like, I didn't get all of the Dragon's Tear memories that you can find that give flashbacks to show you what happened to Zelda, like she ended up getting shunted a millennia in the past. But I got enough of them that I was able to piece together maybe what happened to her. I didn't get the one that very specifically told me what happened to her, but I'm like, wait. Okay, so let's get the pieces here. We see the 3 elemental dragons are flying around that were in Breath of the Wild. But a couple of points I saw one flying around higher up, and I took a picture of it with the camera, and it's labeled as the Light Dragon. It doesn't have a name of its own. And I'm like, well, what the hell is that thing? That wasn't there before. So I see it, and I take a closer look at it, and I'm like, well, it looks different than the other dragons. It's got like this giant mane of blonde hair. Oh, and that's what I pieced together. That's Zelda, isn't it? Somehow this dragon is Zelda. So I see the thing flying by pretty close to the Water Temple, so I'm running towards Sidon, and then I make a beeline straight for the dragon, hop off, land on the thing, and get to the thing's head, and that's when I realize, and this is my favorite picture of any that I've taken in the game, there's the Master Sword. The Master Sword is just embedded in the dragon's head, and then after pulling that, you get an extra memory that explains to you, yes, this is Zelda. This picture is on the wall in my player house in the game, by the way. Again, best picture I've taken. But anyway, this right here is where the structure of the game kind of breaks down. Because in doing this, in getting the Master Sword, I personally know that that's who that is now. Like, Link, it's basically explained to Link that this is Zelda. Not directly, but you get enough context that you can know that. Problem is, you can't tell anyone. Okay, cool, but there is a specific quest line given to you by Impa where you go around finding geoglyphs, and you find these things called Dragon's Tears that give you memories that are explicitly Zelda's memories about what happened in the past, but she ended up back there. You finish that quest line, you are definitively told Zelda turned into a goddamn dragon. She's been flying around up there for who knows how long. Impa knows, you know, because you tell Impa when you get back. You cannot explicitly tell anyone else. I think they kind of give you some kind of half-ass explanation where Impa is like she doesn't want to spread any panic about this until she can figure out what to do about it. Impa never figures out what to do about it. That's the end of her role in the story. And the thing that's so annoying about that is that there are so many there's a whole quest chain involving the stables and a local, like a Hyrule newspaper, where you're like, a lot of it is trying to figure out what happened to Zelda. So half of it are just things that Zelda did before she vanished that people were confused about, and you have to clear up all the confusion about that. Other parts of it are Zelda had recently appeared at various stables and started screwing with people. surprise, surprise, partway through the game, like in the climax of it, because you have to fight in Hyrule Castle to finish off the local phenomenon quest, which the main temples are involved with. You discover that the Zelda that's been bopping around since she supposedly vanished is a Phantom Ganon in disguise. Surprise, surprise. And it's not until that point that the main characters know that Zelda is... the Zelda they've been seeing is not Zelda. Thing is, at this point, I had known for ages that it couldn't have been her. Because she's flying around in the goddamn sky as a dragon. The most egregious example of this would have to be the way I did the order I did the temples in. I did the Fire Temple up in Death Mountain last. And Yunobo, poor simple Yunobo. The fake Zelda very explicitly ties into this because she gives Yunobo a mask which really screws with him and turns him into a jerk, and then he starts basically getting Gorns addicted to narcotics. I'm not kidding, that's essentially what it is. You have to deal with a drug crisis in Gorn City because of this. And after you free Yunobo, he's like, but why would Zelda do something like that? It seems really weird. And then you have to chase, quote-unquote, Zelda up to the top of Death Mountain, down into it to the Fire Temple that's underneath it. And the whole time, he's like, we gotta find out what Zelda wants. We gotta find out why she did all this. I'm like, motherfucker, that's not Zelda. I know where she is. As a matter of fact, when he was looking, he sticks with you in the Elden region, and you're looking around for her. Supposedly, and that's how you get up to the top of the mountain and carry on with that questline. I needed to grab something else off the top of the Light Dragon because, disturbingly, you need to harvest parts off of her to upgrade certain armors. And, so I buggered off, and I ended up getting to her head, much like in this picture. And she must have flown out of the Elden region because you get a bit of text from Yunobo saying, is like, oh, you gotta go do something else? Okay, I'll hang around here and see if I can find any more clues as to where Zelda went. And I'm like, I'm standing on her. She's right here. Zelda... Anyway, I don't know. It was frustrating. It was very frustrating. I shouldn't have found it that frustrating, but I did. But I don't know, I just feel like it was very disjointed in comparison to Breath of the Wild, because in Breath of the Wild you had a very clear idea of what you were supposed to be doing. You had a very clear idea of what was happening. You basically knew where you had to go. There was no mystery of what happened to Zelda, because the main goal was you had to get ready. Because she was nearly finished. She was nearly about to be overpowered by this monstrosity that she was keeping under wraps for 100 years. So I don't know, I felt like it was a lot more focused, is what I'm saying. Because the funny thing is, even after beating the Phantom Ganon that you know is not Zelda, all the other characters still don't know where she is. Like, for whatever reason, they never... Because if you go to the various cities and you talk to people, they're like, oh, wait... We still need to find... I don't think the main characters don't fully grasp what happened to Zelda until you find the 5th Sage. Which is a goddamn ghost. A ghost of Raru's sister Minoru, like one of the 2 Zonai that were remaining. Because she will explicitly tell you what happened, and then from there you can pass that information off to everybody else. But the thing is, it shouldn't have taken that long for everybody to know. And Minoru is a character I've got problems with too, because aside from the flashbacks you get hardly any story for her, you know? Because, like, for the other sages, Tulin, Riju, Yunobo, Sidon, all of them are characters you've already met before, because they were all characters who were in Breath of the Wild and played important roles in that. But also, they each get their own little storylines, whereas with Minoru, you just have to basically solve a bunch of little puzzles, and then you finally figure out who she actually is when she inhabits the body of this mechanism, and then you've got a 5th Sage. But you don't really find out much else beyond that. Like, you know, she's just kind of there at the last minute, you know? I don't know. It's not a character I connected to very well, because it's like I feel like you could have taken... She only served as basically a plot device. Like, something to push the story further so that they knew exactly what happened in the past. They really could have done anything to, you know, do that. It was strange. It was strange. I know I'm bitching about it a fair bit. I still really did enjoy the game and overall like the story. It's just there's these little things that really aggravated me, and I don't know why. They just did. But anyway, I think I've got a couple other little things I'd like to talk about that, but let's actually showcase some other pictures I took. Here's one I really enjoyed. Oh, wait a minute. I need to close off some of these other ones. Another big spoiler for the fight, Ganondorf loses his shit after you beat him for the second time, and he basically destroys himself by turning into a dragon. He basically eliminates his own personality and rational thought, turns into a giant dragon. You have to beat that. You start the fight in his mouth. So here is Link looking very unimpressed, being eaten by a giant Ganon dragon. Dranon? Dragon? I'm not sure how you would say it. And also here I am with the Master Sword standing on Zelda's head, with my silly head. I don't know, I appreciate it. Anyway, I think that's all the pictures I really wanted to show from the final bit of it. I did take a number of pictures throughout the course of the game that were actually really neat too, like the, you know, this one, my favorite picture that I've taken. So I'll just show some of those, because why not? Oh, that's that one. This one. Me and my Korok friends. I don't know, as annoying as finding all the Koroks are, and the fact that, you don't really get much of a reward after a certain point, I do actually like the Koroks. Like, it's just this pure dopamine hit whenever you solve a, Korok puzzle, that little, like, yeah, that they keep giving you every time you finish it. Yep. Anyway, I also like that you can find a bunch of them just out in the world for this puzzle, where you have to pick up this dude and bring him to his friend, and, I don't know. I just consider us Korok crew here, so that was great. Here's a random picture I took of a silver bokoblin scratching its ass. This was actually a picture I took on my way down to Ganondorf for the first time, so this is the first time I'd found a silver bokoblin. Because they weren't supposed to start spawning yet as early in the game as I was, but there's one that is always in a certain spot on the way down to where Ganon is. And there he is. And I just happened to be fortunate enough to take a picture of him while he was scratching his ass. Go figure. Here's a picture of Koga, posing epically. I do like that they gave the Yiga clan sort of their own extra thing in this game, because they were surprisingly entertaining in Breath of the Wild, and I don't know. The Yiga clan is an interesting addition to the series that I do hope that they go on. I mean, you know, we've got Echoes of Wisdom coming out soon, which is going to be its own thing. But I do hope going forward that they don't rely too heavily on the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom formula, that they start doing other things, or maybe start doing throwbacks like Echoes of Wisdom seems to be. But I do hope that they bring back the Yiga clan as recurring characters again, because I do find them really interesting, and Koga is a very entertaining villain. His theme song in this game was great too, so. It's probably one of my favorite pictures I took. I half thawed out a bokoblin before I realized it was in there, and then he's just kind of stuck. I don't know, I just find it really funny. And here's an epic action shot of a bokoblin. There was a lot of stuff happening. This was way back when I first started playing it. I don't even know what happened. Like, I think this guy ran out of that fort and just screamed at me. That's my horse just chilling over there. Something blew up in their fort. I don't even know how. I don't think I did it. And there's a moblin who just got destroyed by it. Yeah, it's weird. It's real weird. Don't really know why that happened. But anyway, there are all my, images and such. Yeah, no, like I said, overall, enjoyed Tears of the Kingdom. It was quite the advancement over Breath of the Wild in many respects. It's just the story seemed a lot more shaky than Breath of the Wild was. It does have I don't know if it's a good extra effect or if it's a terrible extra effect that it kind of makes me want to go back and play Breath of the Wild again. I don't have time to do that. I want to, but I don't. And it does remind me of another weird thing that I thought about too. Because it's so far into the future at this point of this specific world of Zelda that nobody even really knows who the hell Ganondorf is. You only really learn who he is / was in Tears of the Kingdom. Like, there's a lot of speculation as to what the Calamity is in Breath of the Wild, and Urbosa makes an offhand reference to the fact that it was a demon in the form of a Gyarados, and Urbosa is the only one who makes any reference to the fact that it might have been human at one point. And the thing that you learn in Tears of the Kingdom is that the Calamity you fought in Breath of the Wild wasn't even actually Ganondorf, like the real one. It was explicitly the seal that Rauru put the physical form of Ganondorf under was steadily breaking down, and 10,000 years prior to the events of these two games, it broke down enough that it specifically called Ganondorf's hatred and malice incarnate managed to leak out and start causing havoc on its own. But it seems like very specifically Calamity Ganon, or the Calamity, doesn't have the driving force behind the driving intelligent force of Ganondorf behind its actions, so it's just this rampaging natural disaster, essentially. Which means that it's a completely separate entity from him, and that just adds a shitload more questions about what was happening. Because very explicitly you have to stop the Calamity in Breath of the Wild before it reincarnates and gains physical form. You stop it just before it builds a proper body for itself, and it fights you as some sort of mechanical / decayed corpse monstrosity before it just turns into a giant shadow boar. But see, then you find out that that's not even physically Ganondorf. He's stuck as a mummy below the castle. So the physical body that's attached to all the Guardian tech you fight as the Calamity Ganon in Breath of the Wild, that's not even him. So what would have happened if it succeeded? Like, what would have happened if it physically managed to pull itself together? Would there be two Ganons? Because, like, it looked like it was on its way to building a physical body that looked like Ganondorf usually looked like. Specifically, if I remember correctly, its weird ravaged face looked a lot like the way he looked in Twilight Princess, which is not what he looks like in Tears of the Kingdom. So would there have been two different Ganondorfs at that point? How does that work? Not to mention, the thing just seemed like it was adamant on destroying everything. And as we know now with Tears of the Kingdom, the seal on Ganondorf's body was breaking down to the point where it looked like it, I think there's roughly between 5 to 8 years between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So Ganondorf would have been released regardless at that point. So then the question is, had the Calamity succeeded, would it have destroyed everything, and then Ganondorf would have resurrected into a world where an offshoot of him had already killed everybody and destroyed everything, so there was nothing left for him to conquer? Again, this is one of those things we probably shouldn't think about too much, but I am, because I can't help it. So one is connected to the other, but they seem to be two separate entities. It's really weird. I also love that another thing that's great about it, and this is something that pops up very frequently in the Zelda series whenever Ganondorf is shown as more of an intelligent humanoid enemy, his ego and his pride are almost always the things that do him in, because it's implied that he very easily could have killed Link at the beginning of the game when he first was released, but he didn't, and he didn't specifically because he was told over and over again that far in the future this person named Link was going to kill him. And then he's not impressed by what he sees. So it seems like he treats Link as beneath his notice, and he specifically lets Link run around and do all the stuff to gather up his allies and strengthen things just because he wants a challenge. But he doesn't want enough of a challenge that he can't beat it, is the thing. So, like, had Ganondorf killed Link at the very beginning of the game, there wouldn't have been anything left to stop him. And it's funny, because the Calamity very nearly killed Link, and if it wasn't for the fact that Zelda's power is finally activated at the last minute, the Calamity would have destroyed everything and killed everybody long before any of this happened. So I don't know, it's interesting that Ganondorf without his intelligent mind is more dangerous and much more effective as a world ender than the real deal. I don't know. It's a weird thing to think, and I don't know. That's just my thoughts on the matter. Anyway, I've been rambling about Breath of the Wild for about 40 minutes. Not Breath of the Wild. Well, yes, that and Tears of the Kingdom for about 40 minutes. So like I said, I think that the bottom line is that I really enjoyed the game. The story could use some work. Gameplay was perfect. Like, I loved everything. I can't think of a single complaint about anything in terms of how the game felt. There might have been too much stuff crammed in there, that's about it. But I think that's just me being old talking, because I just don't have the time for that kind of thing anymore. Not like I used to. He says as he's probably going to stream for another 3 hours actually playing other video games, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, no, overall it was good. It was good. I don't know if I'm ever going to get back to it again. If I do, it'll be a long time down the road. I might replay Breath of the Wild first, like I said. And, yeah. Yeah. I feel like there was one other thing I was going to say. It's gone. Whatever it is, it just flew out of my head. Something to do with Breath of the Wild, obviously. Oh, yeah, I think this is something I already mentioned in my little ramble about it, but, my only hope is that they actually, like, these two games are it for this particular type of Zelda game, and they just go forward and try doing new things after this. It seems like Echoes of Wisdom is going to be the last game on the Switch anyway for the Zelda series, so whatever their next system is going to be, I hope they kind of, like, tinker and come out with, like, a different thing, you know, make another advancement in how these games go. But yeah, that's about it. That is my thoughts on that. Now, I had a couple of things in mind I wanted to actually play. One of them being the original Fallout, obviously, because we haven't played any of that in a long time. So let's switch over everything here. Update the stream title and such. No, it's not Retro Sude. That's not what today is.